following interview is with Jim Shear, founder and teacher of the Shear Institute of Astrology and Metaphysics, a mystery school for spiritual transformation. Jim has been teaching astrology, meditation, and metaphysical classes in Los Angeles for the last 18 years, and is now beginning to make videos describing the nature and purpose of this school. This interview focuses on the nature of a mystery school and is followed by a question and answer session.
I know you have been teaching in Los Angeles for the last 18 years and have often referred to your school as a mystery school. Could you tell me what a mystery school is?
Sure. Over many centuries, there have been many names created for a school concerned with spiritual transformation, such as a wisdom school or mystery school. But the purpose of such a school is simple. It is designed for people who feel the need to engage in a true transformational process, and to then, when able, to assist others in whatever way is best for them. The nature of transformation is that it shifts a person into a new state of consciousness and a completely different way of understanding who and what we are. There are many doorways for people wanting to work in a transformational way, and no school can have or should have them all. A school is always a function of the necessity of the time period and culture in which it appears. Its nature is both creative for the needs of the times and at the same time adaptive to these same conditions. While there are many schools, all of which have a shared purpose, it is also true that each school has a unique purpose. A school arises from an evolutionary need to develop a new understanding of how transformation can occur by focusing on a new set of approaches that adapt to the specific needs of the times, as well as to certain types of people, or more accurately, souls. What all schools have in common is the knowledge that underlying the tremendous diversity of existence is unity, a state of consciousness all human beings can potentially experience and live in. In fact, this is where the transformational process leads for all schools. This is what they all have in common.
Could you describe the nature of your school and in what way it is unique?
Of course. The purpose of the school has 6 different aspects to it. The first is to assist people to experience and stabilize in higher states of consciousness. The second is to place emphasis on our relationship with language itself as a fundamental part of one's evolutionary process. In addition, one is learning the importance of communication as a way of reducing chaos in one's life. The third is to present a new model of astrology that has 4 definite aspects. The first is that it's holistic, in that each sign, planet, and house is an aspect of the unity underlying existence. The second is to confront the tendency astrologers have of focusing on prediction and events, and replace this with an emphasis on the meaning, purpose, and a lesson that a person has the potential to learn from that event. The third is that it shows astrology is archetypal in nature, in that every aspect of this field is part of an alive, universal template underlying existence or physical reality. And finally, it reveals that astrology is intrinsically connected with quantum physics, philosophy, psychology, and of course, spirituality, and must not be separated from it. The fourth purpose is to discover that our minds operate in a dualistic manner and to learn how to go beyond the state of identification with that mode of being. This will allow one to operate consciously in a world where dualistic considerations dominate people's minds, but while also seeing options and possibilities that the dualistic mind cannot imagine. The fifth is to learn how to inquire into life and oneself so that one no longer has to rely upon another person or authority for clarity or certainty. And the sixth is to experience the advantages of working with others in small groups as part of one's evolutionary process. What makes this school unique is that it emphasizes all of the above aspects of transformation in as holistic a manner as possible. The intention is to create an environment where transformation can accelerate due to the interaction of all 6 activities in a balanced and cohesive way.
Why do you feel a wisdom school is needed at this time?
Wisdom, knowledge of transformation, the esoteric sciences, whatever words you want to use, are ancient. And they've been around probably as long as humanity has been around. But by the same token, each generation has to make that process alive. In the late 1800s, Blavatsky introduced, she wrote some books called Cosmic Doctrine, Isis Unveiled, and she developed basically the Theosophical Society. And over the next 50 years, up into the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, a variety of teachers that kept this wisdom alive developed, and it affected the world. In astrology, you had Dane Rudhyar, among other astrologers, who also were very knowledgeable of the esoteric sciences and created a spiritual aspect to astrology that was new, modern, and important. Well, this is our generation now, and the times have changed. Technology has changed life. And so a new set of understandings that are still basically founded in ancient wisdom still needs to be thrived, it needs to develop, and presented to people of today.
When a person enters a school, what are they likely to be working on?
Well, when a person is beginning to work on themselves in any of the methods that I mentioned earlier, they're coming as they are. They're coming in a state of chaos, confusion, disorder, and learning how to not fix their lives, but how to go through a greater understanding, some kind of transformational path that allows them to discover more of why they are in the state that they're in and the kinds of things they have to begin looking at in order for things to change.
What is the value of understanding language in relationship to the mind?
Well, what I've noticed is that people don't realize what they're thinking, the way they're thinking, and how influenced they are with the contents of their mind. And so the first thing a person has to begin to do, whether it's through meditation or through some of the discussions that we have in class, is look at the nature of the mind, what it's saying, what it's doing, in order to understand what's happening. Because a lot of times people don't really understand what's actually happening in their minds and how much they're ruled by their thought processes. There was a guy named Alfred Korzybski who wrote a book called General Semantics. And he started a movement, this was happening around 1939. And there's been other disciplines that were affected by it, where he showed how much we are not aware of how much we're affected by language itself. And that in order to improve our consciousness, we're going to have to be able to clear our mind so it starts to think well and use words well and not be used by words.
Can understanding language help us to reduce disorder or entropy in our lives?
It's not understanding language per se that matters. It's understanding that we, number one, use language automatically, and that we're not aware of how we're affected by our use of language and by other people's expressions. In other words, we're not aware of how much we're influenced by the language itself unconsciously. And so that's the first step, is to start looking at that. And many of my classes go into great detail about this topic.
Is this why you think understanding language is so fundamental?
Well, again, it's not understanding language that we're focused on. It's understanding how we're affected by language and how automatic it is. And when that happens, we don't even realize how big an effect the contents of our mind are ruling us. There's a variety of therapies, for example, out there that focus on this sort of thing, and all of them derive from Korzybski's work. But here, before a person can go to higher states of consciousness, whether that's through meditation or other exercises, this has to be dealt with. Our daily life, our functioning in daily life has to be looked at, and how we're affected by language is a very important aspect of that process.
So how can understanding language, or how we use it, help us go beyond the mind?
Well, it happens in steps. When a person starts to communicate well with one another and gain understanding, real understanding actually leads to a quiet mind, not just meditation. Krishnamurti went into this in great detail. When a person's clear, their mind naturally stops. There's nothing more to say. If you solve a problem, for example, there's nothing more to think about, is there? Well, that's what you have to do in many facets of your life. That way, you're having more and more experiences of great clarity and therefore inner silence. That process is what we focus on most in the school.
Why do you feel people take the use of language for granted?
Well, because no one talks about it. I mean, one of the things that I've learned since I've been teaching in Los Angeles is how the topic that we're talking about together right now is not a part of one's concerns. In the classes, it gradually becomes a concern, something the person wants to really think about, because I'm raising it. But it's a taken for granted thing because no one's looking at it. And it results in things staying the way they are in the world. I mean, look at how we're influenced by advertising. Look at how much our political discourse is so simplistic and leads nowhere. And we accept that. Why do we accept that? It's because we're living without understanding the importance of language and how we're affected by it, and how much it's basically creating chaos in our lives.
It sounds like how we're affected by language is a central part of the school.
It is. No matter whether I'm working in the area of meditation, astrology, inquiry, meditation, contemplation, any of it, it's all going to have to start with how we're affected by language, how we use language, because without that being a primary subject, a topic to go into, a person's not going to be able to gain any traction moving forward to any kind of higher state, much less being able to just handle the daily problems of their lives in a better way.